Reporting live from the E.W. Scripps School of Journalism at Ohio University, this is The Fourth Estate, with your host, Morgan Anderson.
Hello and welcome to The Fourth Estate. I'm your host, Morgan Anderson. We're happy to have you here. The Fourth Estate plays a critical role in our society as journalists are tasked with holding the government accountable. In the next 30 minutes, we'll explore a number of significant topics relating to journalism in 2025, from the ever-changing nature of the field to the different types of journalism, and even a conversation about artificial intelligence. We'll have it all right here just for you. We begin with a look at the major headlines surrounding journalism in 2025. Since the Trump administration took office at the beginning of the year, journalists are battling censorship and new rules on how and what they report. Kylie Bridgman's report kicks us off today.
Journalists in the nation's capital have been under fire since Trump took office again. In February, the AP was barred from both the White House Oval Office and Air Force One because they refused to stop using the term the Gulf of Mexico in their coverage. Then in October, dozens of outlets walked away from their press credentials at the Pentagon because they didn't want to have to adhere to new rules on what they could and couldn't cover. Now, journalists across the country continue to wonder what the future of the Fourth Estate looks like. Misleading, biased, exposed. That's how a webpage on the official White House website reads. The page titled Media Offenders launched Saturday and goes on claiming to expose media outlets such as the Boston Globe, CBS News, and The Independent.
Obviously something that we've seen over the past, really years, ever since Trump joined, the political sphere in the United States is just really just horrible hate being spewed towards journalists just really trying to do a job.
President Trump has repeatedly been reported to insult reporters, cutting on everything from their journalistic integrity to their appearance. Last month, when being questioned about the Jeffrey Epstein files, he threw these words at a female reporter.
Yeah, Jennifer, go ahead. In the files,
Gabrielle Cabanis is a senior at Ohio University. She spent the fall of 2024 and this past summer working as a journalist in D.C.
I think that a lot of journalists are kind of dumbfounded by the way that the administration has been treating them, and it's kind of a question mark right now as to how this will be resolved.
Cabanis is part of the next wave of professional journalists. She's set to graduate in May and tells me the administration's criticism of journalists doesn't intimidate her.
I think that as a young journalist, it's super important for me to, understand these dangers, but also be brave and continue to write truthful stories, accurate stories that are based in the code of ethics that we follow. And so I think that these are all super important.
Now, there's no clear author on that Media Offenders webpage. It also includes an Offenders Hall of Fame and a leaderboard entitled The Race to the Bottom. Reporting outside of Schoonover Center, I'm Kylie Bridgman for The Fourth Estate.
Thanks, Kylie. The Indiana Daily Student, which is Indiana University's student-run newspaper, is still fighting a censorship battle of their own. The university now faces a First Amendment lawsuit from former student media advisor Jim Rodenbush, who was fired for refusing to censor the paper. Reporter Dan Gray has more on the story.
Bloomington, Indiana was set to celebrate the successes of Hoosier football during homecoming last month. Though the score sheet showed a win for Indiana on the field, it came at the hands of a defeat in free speech rights for students. Going into the week of the game, IU administrators made a request for no news stories in that week's edition of the Indiana Daily Student, the school's student newspaper, which has been running for nearly 160 years. When IDS faculty advisor Jim Rodenbush refused and tried to run student news stories in the publication anyway, the school fired him 2 days before the paper ran, citing his lack of leadership and ability to work in alignment with the university's media plan. They then canceled all future print editions of the Daily Student. Rodenbush, in a fiery response to the Associated Press, said he had no regrets running the stories, and that, quote, somebody has to stand up. Reporting for the Fourth Estate, I'm Dan Gray.
According to the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, Indiana University ranks third worst in the country for student free speech rights. In terms of public schools, they ranked Indiana dead last. Following the censorship of a student newspaper at Indiana University, Anna Miller met with members of the Post to talk independence within student media. Here's her report.
Because a university provides funding for something doesn't mean they should be able to dictate what that publication is able to do. So we really prioritize maintaining our independence and press freedom at the Post.
The director of media at the Post, who Rooksbury describes as the red tape cutter, has no editorial role. And for Rooksbury, this separation is what shapes the way the newspaper serves the Athens community.
Athens is in a news desert, so a lot of community members and students get there. It's the primary source of news is the Post, so we're definitely in a unique position there. And I think that also kind of speaks to the importance of independence. When we have community members reading our stories, they don't want any kind of university hands of what we're doing.
In every weekly edition of the Post, like the one I have here, you'll find an opinion column that gives writers the opportunity to write about what they think matters. And opinion editor Daphne Grader says she is very thankful for this opportunity from the Post.
I kind of am able to write about things that matter, and then it gets published, and it's out there when people look up my name, which is really beneficial, and it's just had the biggest impact on me in my writing, and I didn't even realize that I kind of am like a journalist.
Grader believes every voice matters. When readers respond to a column, it shows writers are publishing stories people care about.
Just the most rewarding to know that we are feeding the masses and what we want to do and like in a role that we want to have someday. So it means our degrees mean something, which can be disheartening. The way of journalism today is that things feel polarized and censored.
Reporting for the Fourth Estate, I'm Anna Miller.
Now, the Post says they're staying committed to their independence in telling the stories of Athens and have for over 110 years. That's a great story from Anna, but let's take a quick break. Don't go anywhere just yet. Coming up after the break, we have a look into how community and local journalism play into the Fourth Estate. Plus, with so much media available today, we'll dive into legacy journalism ownership and the 6 major companies that own most of your media.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Success is never guaranteed. You have to want it to chase after it. At Ohio University, our guarantee is to champion your pursuit, to carve your path not just to that first job, but also the next. Our guarantee is that we'll give you the tools to graduate on time, and that you'll know the cost from day one. Our guarantee is that we'll be there with you far beyond 4 years. We'll be there for life. Ours is the only Ohio guarantee.
Attacks against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are on the rise.
My simple solution to the problem was remove people from the scene and help them feel safer. In terms of the hate crimes, I think there is so much more work to be done. We really need to come together and tackle this issue as a community.
Welcome back to the Fourth Estate. We're now diving into the importance of both independent and local journalism. Now, these two forms of journalism shape communities just like Athens, and they both play a significant role in the Fourth Estate. Independent journalism is free of external influences, while local journalism hones in on the issues and events relating to a certain community. We now turn it over to reporter Kennedy Masterson with more.
Thanks, Morgan. Before we get into today's story, we're breaking down two terms you'll hear a lot: independent journalism and local journalism. Independent outlets work without big corporate owners, and local journalism focuses on the stories that happen right here in our community. Together, they help shape the Fourth Estate, and they set the stage for how community reporting works in Athens. With that in mind, let's take a look at how community journalism is shaping local news today. When we think about news, we usually picture the big national outlets, the ones that fill our feeds day to day. But in small towns like Athens, the most important stories are often the ones happening right down the road. That's where community journalism comes in. The reporting primarily focuses on the needs, concerns, and daily experiences of a specific community and neighborhood. It is hyper-local as it builds relationships with residents and members of the community. A primary distinction is the fact that the residents in the community are who determine what is actually newsworthy. Here in Athens, that work is happening through the Athens County Independent, an award-winning nonprofit newsroom covering local government, schools, housing, and issues that don't usually make national headlines. Eric Bull, an independent reporter, has been working for Athens Independent for almost 2 years. He says reporting for community journalism,
you're part of the community. I mean, you ideally, when you're reporting, you live in the community, you have close connections to the community, and as a result, you just know people in the community. And you also have a vested interest in making sure your community succeeds.
Studies show when local news disappears, voter turnout drops and communities become less connected. Bull says why local news and his job matters here in Athens.
Reporting on issues that they are working to solve, or reporting on issues in the community that don't have anyone working as their champion. So it's really kind of a people-first mindset.
And all this comes at a time when even national public media faces new uncertainty. Earlier this week, NPR reported new developments in its legal challenge against a Trump-era executive order that threatened public media funding and independence. NPR called the latest settlement a victory for editorial independence, saying it upholds the First Amendment rights of public media and helps ensure support for stations across the country as the case moves to court in December. This update comes as millions of dollars are being put back into the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, money local stations rely on. At the same time, many national news companies are now owned by large corporations, where decisions are often made by people who aren't journalists. If big news organizations can be influenced by outside pressure, local outlets become even more important. Student resident Adriana DeFabio talks more about where she gets her community news from.
I'm actually a journalism major at OU, so I like to follow social media accounts like the Post and the Thread. Social media accounts help me stay up to date, and then also just following OU journalists as well.
Community journalism does not always make national headlines, but it does shape daily life by keeping people informed, holding leaders accountable, and helping neighbors understand what is happening in their own backyard. Reporting from the backyard of Athens, I'm Kennedy Masterson.
And while community reporters keep Athens connected, legacy journalism remains shaped by the interests and ownership behind its biggest outlets. This form of journalism includes television, radio, and newspapers. But at this point, much of legacy media is owned by just a few companies after decades of consolidation. 6 companies own 90% of the media in the United States. Comcast is the largest with over $142 billion, and they're the owners of NBC, Universal, Telemundo, and many others. You also see Disney, the owners of ABC and ESPN, Time Warner, who possesses CNN and Time Magazine. News Corp, National Amusements, and Sony are the other 3 major players that make up this nearly $500 billion industry. And when looking at local television, there are over 4 major players who own stations in the country's 210 media markets. Nexstar Media Group owns the most stations with over 200 in the U.S. Gray Television and Sinclair both own over 180 stations nationwide, while Tegna holds the rights to the other 64 stations. Ownership continues to consolidate, and to provide some perspective, in 1982, there were 50 companies that controlled 90% of the market. Today, as we mentioned, just 6 companies own the same share of that market. In the similar vein, public media has been under fire around the country since May after $1.1 billion of funding were cut by the Trump administration. NPR fought the budget cuts and recently reached a deal with the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to receive a $36 million deal. But this deal was originally ended by pressure from President Trump. NPR accused CPB of illegally yielding to Trump's demands to punish the network for its news coverage. CPB and NPR had been in a legal battle over the last few months, and the resolution came in late November. More than 1,500 public media stations around the country are in danger of closing without the federal funding. The trial between the two parties is scheduled to begin this month in Washington. Now, we've still got more for you, so stay with us. Coming up after the break.
If this was a human that reported this story, or was this a computer that reported this story, I wonder how many of them will say it doesn't matter.
Our Audrey Erie sat down with a pair of Ohio University journalism professors to discuss how artificial intelligence is changing journalism in the Fourth Estate.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and homey. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Success is never guaranteed. You have to want it to chase after it. At Ohio University, our guarantee is to champion your pursuit, to carve your path not just to that first job, but also the next. Our guarantee is that we'll give you the tools to graduate on time, and that you'll know the cost from day one. Our guarantee is that we'll be there with you far beyond 4 years. We'll be there for life. Ours is the only Ohio guarantee.
Welcome back. We now turn our attention to the ever-growing influence of artificial intelligence, or AI. AI has had a profound impact on the world, and that's no difference for journalism. Reporter Audrey Erie had a chance to talk to a pair of Ohio University professors about the topic.
Thanks, Morgan. Similar to many other industries right now, journalism is facing threats from the rapidly advancing technologies of AI. I had the opportunity to sit down with 2 Ohio University journalism professors to hear what they have to say about the emergence of AI in journalism. Mark Turner and Tom Suddes shared their views in a podcast. Here are some of the highlights.
Is there a appetite for AI usage? And I don't think we have that yet. And I don't think the public will be able to as I said before, distinguish the differences in the things that we're doing. And I worry that because it is so a part of our culture now, or is growing to be a part of our culture, that they won't care. I think if if this was a human that reported this story, or was this a computer that reported this story, I wonder how many of them will say it doesn't matter. Or if it's, even the quality doesn't matter. So I think that's going to be kind of something ongoing that we need to have discussions about, or polls about, or surveys about. Like, do you want your news from a computer?
If AI is the originator of content and programming, and I'm not trying to be funny, and I fail at it every time I try anyway, can you sue a computer chip, so to speak, for defamation? Now, you can say the producer of the chip or the person is the voicing of it, but if this is really a synthetic process, how can you get any accountability? I'm sure the judges, like every other kind of law, common law, will evolve methods in approaching these questions. But if we're talking about abstract technology that in effect can become kind of not out of control, but a self-engineered content producer, then who's accountable for things that are lies or defamations or...
One of the things I do tell students, and I think this is about any tool, because I will continue to say AI is a tool, that, and I'm sort of excited about this, because I mean, no offense to my young colleague, but I'm older, and I think that I don't know everything that could be done with a particular tool. So I'm kind of excited to see what's going to happen with it. But what I would tell students is, learn everything that you can about it, and see what you can do with it ethically. Because you may be thinking about something that you can do with AI that I have never thought of, that's never been thought of before, that journalism needs your sort of perspective on it. And that's what I'm hoping that will happen, is that we, in this Wild West that we're living in with AI, that somebody will have a sort of laser focus about how this is actually going to work to the benefit of journalism, because it's got to happen.
I want to thank both professors for taking the time to sit down and talk to me. To view the full podcast, you can use the link that is on the screen now. At the end there, Professor Turner talked about using AI ethically. A code of ethics is crucial for reporters to act in a professional way when reporting. Ethics ensure fair and neutral reporting in journalism, which is essential for reporters to build trust with their viewers and readers. Without trust in reporters, citizens are unable to gain clear information on what is happening in their government. Investigative reporter Julie Reynolds keeps her code of ethics simple.
Part of my ethics is I have a very strong belief not in being balanced, but in being fair. I don't think being balanced is correct, because sometimes you can quote the other side, but they're saying something that's not true. And so,
Here at Ohio University, all journalism students are required to take a media ethics course, and at the end, we all create our own code of ethics.
Audrey, when you took that media ethics course, what was the most impactful thing that you learned?
I think learning how to navigate an ethical dilemma and learning that there's really no right choice in an ethical dilemma, there's just a better choice of the two.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Audrey, for your report.
Of course.
We'll want to stay right with us as we go to break. Don't go anywhere just yet. Coming up after the break, what makes this one age group so vulnerable to fake news?
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. One day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and homes to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. Parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Success is never guaranteed. You have to want it to chase after it. At Ohio University, our guarantee is to champion your pursuit, to carve your path, not just to that first job, but also the next. Our guarantee is that we'll give you the tools to graduate on time. You'll know the cost from day one. Our guarantee is that we'll be with you far beyond 4 years. We'll be there for life. Ours is the only Ohio guarantee.
Attacks against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are on the rise.
My simple solution to the problem was remove people from the scene and help them feel safer. In terms of the hate crimes, I think there is so much more work to be done. We really need to come together and tackle this issue as a community.
Welcome back. Gen Z users are depending more on social media for news than any other generation before. While the platforms are convenient, it does make falling for fake news or one-sided information a lot easier. Reporter Serenity Prophet explains.
As social media continues to grow, it's becoming easier for users to get information around the world. And Gen Z is using social media platforms to stay up to date with current events. However, a social media professor at Ohio University says that can be harmful because of tools like algorithm.
Obviously, the algorithm is designed to recommend, right, things that it thinks you like and want to see. It kind of bases it on multiple different things, right? What have you watched before that you found interesting, that we can give you more of that content. It also looks at what have you watched before that you liked, but that we see other people have liked as well, and they also watched A, B, C, and D, so then maybe we can also show you A, B, C, and D, and maybe you'll like it just like they did, right?
She says this filter bubble is creating one-sided content, which is alarming for Gen Z users getting news online.
When we think of news and we think of news information, we want to know the full story, we want to be objective, we understand the whole issue, but when we're only being given one side and it might not even be the truth from that side, it can become pretty dangerous.
While users' social media algorithm can cause problems, so can the spread of fake news. So I asked students, how do they spot fake news and how many times they've fallen for it?
So I would say definitely a couple times a week probably, but I don't go on to believe it for long periods of time. It's just that initial oh my gosh, and then I'm oh wait, I think it's fake.
While another student says she's cautious about receiving news on social media.
I try to take everything with a grain of salt, try to see if there are references to whatever I'm reading, if there's anything to back it up.
Professor Marinova says stay away from flashy headlines that is most likely clickbait, and be strategic about what you like on social media to keep your filter bubble well-rounded. If you're getting your news through social media, fact-checking may be a good idea, while also directly following your local news station or national news outlets on their social media pages. Reporting for the Fourth Estate, I'm Serenity Prophet.
Thanks, Serenity. There are ways to reset your algorithm in your app settings to help stay out of filter bubbles, along with fact-checking websites. And while Gen Z grew up with social media and the internet at their fingertips, even though Gen Z grew up with it so easily, according to a political article, Gen Z is more likely to fall for news than any other generation. That's because they stick to what their algorithm shows, which can lead to conspiracy theories and distrust in the news. 3 out of 5 Gen Z users get their information on social media, with TikTok being the most popular, and only 16% of their generation have strong confidence in the news. Political says this is mostly due to having fewer life experiences and less knowledge to make out what's real and what's not. Well, before we let you go, we're going to take a quick break and then a final word from the Fourth Estate team. We'll be right back.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how sketch is me? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes. Look at that. Yeah, you even turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you got to get it trending.
No, you're doing it wrong.
Let's go.
Can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
We want to say thank you for tuning in today and joining us on the Fourth Estate. We hope you enjoyed and learned something along the way. It's been our pleasure to tell the stories of journalism. For more from our entire team here, I'm Morgan Anderson. Have a great day.